Is there any public comment for finance? Okay. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is reviewing the contracts. The first contract is a dentist contract. The second one is also a dentist contract. The third one is for medical coverage at football games and scrimmages. Then bus driver physical exams. Did you want to touch on the Sweet Stevens Katz Williams agreement? That's what we went into with the Bucks County IU, correct? That's what that one is?
That is the special education legal services consultant agreement. So it's for the retainer for those special ed law services. So that's not DIU.
But didn't DIU, I guess
that's technology again.
Oh, that's not the one that we went in on with other districts?
That's the technology council.
Oh, okay.
DIU.
But isn't that the same? That is the same council, right? Or no?
It very well may be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
this particular contract is the special education.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
And Music Theater International would be for South Middle School's play. And Source4Teachers, do you want to touch on that one?
Jackie can touch on that one. That's under her.
Source4Teachers. I don't want to throw the mics off. Afraid to touch them. To be honest, a little scared touching the mics. So Source4Teachers is 2 addendums. The first is to compensate 2 clerks, 2 school district clerks, who will be subbing in long-term for 2 secretaries who are going to be out on medical leaves this summer for a week or 2, possibly 3 weeks. The PESPA contract calls for a $2 per hour increase when a clerk subs for a secretary 5 days or longer. So on the 5th day, they receive a $2 increase. Source4Teachers, these clerks were also signed up as Source4Teacher substitutes. The principals have asked that the clerks sub for their secretaries so that they could actually work during the summer and not just have, a random person sitting there answering the phone. Their clerks work with the secretaries regularly, so they'll actually be able to, finish some of the work that needs to be done in the summer. However, that $2 increase is not part of our Source4Teachers contract. So when the clerks are subbing in for secretaries, they would just be compensated their regular rate. Source4Teachers wants all their dots. Their I's dotted and their T's crossed, no longer, on a handshake or a request from the administration to compensate them because it says that the contract, in the PESPA contract. So in order for them to compensate them at this $2 an hour increase, we have to have an addendum that's board approved and signed.
So the clerk is essentially doing the other person's job instead of their job, and
yes.
So they need to have that increase. That's what
right.
you're saying. Okay.
And the clerk is that building's clerk. So it's 2 separate buildings, and those clerks work 900 hours, but not during the summer. So essentially, they'll be coming in as Source4Teacher employees for the secretary, but we're asking that they be compensated at their PESPA rate. Oh, and the other is a ESY teacher that will be filling in for about a week and a half. An ESL teacher that will be filling in for extended school year for approximately a week and a half. And that was a request by Stephanie Washam. We couldn't find anyone in-house to do that, any of our own teachers who are compensated again under the PEA agreement at $25 an hour. So they did find someone that was a substitute certified to do ESY or ESL for the summer, and we wanted to compensate them in accordance with PEA at $25 an hour. They'd be working for 4 hours a day. The reason there's a half-day rate on there equal to 100 is in case this person clocked in under the 4 hours, that would automatically trigger Source4Teachers to pay them for the half-day rate. We don't want that to happen, of course, so, you know, they said this is the only way to safeguard that they're going to receive the $100 for the 4 hours they work. Any other questions on those two? I know it's covering a short period of time, and I'm actually happy that Source4Teachers is on their game, and they are asking for addendums to compensate folks accordingly.
The next one is the Linkit renewal agreement. So those are all of the contracts. Does anyone have any questions or comments on those? Okay. Next is the student activity accounts as requested, the Deibler Elementary Student Council renewal, Central Middle School Student Council, that one's carrying over, the Central Middle School Yearbook Club, Central Middle School Drama, and Central Middle School General Purpose, which are all carrying over. Any questions or comments on those? Okay. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, next one, I just wanted to quickly let you know what's happening with our local tax collectors. We have 8 of them, and in the past, the tax collectors had bank accounts at banks established by the tax collector, usually in the tax collector's name, and then they would pay forward funds to the district on a weekly basis or based on the balance of money they have. What we've done is work with the tax collectors. Amelia and I sat down with the tax collectors and actually and worked out with them that we would open accounts at QMB, which is the district's depository, one account for each tax collector. The accounts are actually under the school district's name. The tax collector has the ability to deposit into those accounts and to read those accounts as far as the activity in the accounts online. And then those dollars are actually to be then transferred on a nightly basis to the school district's general fund account. So the goal is, of course, is to get our money faster and to invest it in our investments faster rather than having it sit in a tax collector's bank account. So we all work together to come up with that and put that plan in place. The tax collectors have all been very helpful and also have very good suggestions along the way about how to do these things. And also we're using the remote deposit capture system where they can scan their checks at home and they'll go into the account that night. So it's actually saving them time from having to run to the bank and wait till the next day, things like that. So it's really, I really just want to report that the relationship between the school district and the tax collectors is growing in a positive way, and that we're all working together. And I just want to take a minute to thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is the one-to-one program.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about the one-to-one program fee that's currently in place that all students at the high school pay in order to use the laptop. Diane has brought us some information about this to you back at Technology Committee meeting, and also I had emailed information out to you from the Tech Pool Council, and we've included that information for your review again. Diane wants to go over a little bit of the information with you, and hopefully we can come to some conclusions on it.
Thank you, Sean. So basically what we do right now, as all of you know, is there is a $50 fee that we call it for the beginning of the school year for each student who's at the high school is required to pay. And it is a requirement unless they are on the free and reduced lunch status, and then the fee is waived. Other than that, each student is expected to pay that $50. So what has come to light through not only our own attorney, but through the technology pool that you just mentioned, is that is it really, are we allowed to be making that a mandatory fee, since the laptop is part of the curriculum now? So we're making the student take the laptops. So are we within our bounds to actually require that fee? And if we're not, if we can't require it, what are our other options? So that's why we just wanted to bring it up one more time, because as of August 1st, we're going to be opening our InfoSnap, which is our returning student verification system, where the parent will be required to pay that fee for the 17-18 school year. So we're kind of up against the wall here a little bit, so we really need to make sure that if we're going to keep the fee as a requirement, A, do we keep the fee as a requirement, which is $50 right now? Would we consider lowering the fee from $50 to something else, or do we make that fee optional? So I pulled some of the districts, our neighboring districts, and right now both Quakertown and Palisades this year are going to an optional fee for the first time, rather than having the required fee. And that's really predicated off of, you know, Mark Walls' recommendation here that you guys have in front of you. So Neshaminy is still requiring a fee, and Central Bucks is going to a one-to-one program for the first time this year, and they're piloting it, and there is no fee at all, because I think they just want to get through. Central Bucks is so big, I think they just want to get through their first year without this. So I bring to you, you know, again, looking for guidance on which way to go with this. Do we remain as we have been with a required fee, or do we nix the fee altogether, and then the district will just end up picking up the ADP, which is accidental damage protection, or do we do a hybrid with an optional fee? And when I say an optional fee, allow the parent to make the choice. So if they do pay the fee, then it is covered. So if their student does damage the laptop, it's covered. Otherwise, they would be responsible for the repair. And just to give you an idea of what we get charged for a repair that ADP does cover, we send all our laptops out to Integra One for service up in Allentown. We've been working great with them since the beginning of the whole program here. I got some quotes for that from them. So their labor cost is $95 an hour. If the LCD, so the screen on one of the older models breaks, that's $274. If one of the screens is cracked on the 11E, which is the touch screen, that can be upwards of $347 plus your labor costs. A keyboard is $78. The top cover, which is what the kids do a lot, they crack the corners because they drop them and they might crack the corner. That's $86, and the bottom enclosure is $89. So you can see that if the parent does opt not to pay for that insurance, it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. So if we do go to some type of an optional fee, I would really highly recommend to the parents that they take, you know, that they pay the fee just to cover themselves financially.
Can you explain, so if they're getting the, if they decide to do the optional fee, right? And the laptop gets damaged, didn't you say we're picking up that insurance anyway? So we're not actually getting charged the charges that you just listed, right?
Correct. So what we are proposing would be, we would still pay the ADP because it's too costly not to, just based on what I just read you here. So we would put out the money for the ADP, and then we would get an invoice from the company for the laptop that wasn't paid for by the parent, and then we would have to invoice the parent to pay us back.
So in a sense, we're keeping that money, and I guess I'm just wondering what is the legality of us keeping, say it's $274 as opposed to $50, we're then keeping that money. What is the legality of us taking that money and keeping it when it's not, we're not actually paying it? And then where does that money go?
So, Sean, can you help me with where that money is going there?
Parents will have the option to basically purchase the coverage. If they choose not to purchase the coverage, they would be responsible for the repair costs. When we get the repair costs back, we will pass them on to the family. The money that we would get back from that would go back into an account that we would use to further fund the one-to-one program, because there are costs associated with the one-to-one program throughout the year, like replacement batteries that fail with no fault of the student, and power cords that fail, things like that we do purchase for the one-to-one program. So we would use those dollars for that. We would just put it right back into the program.
And we're allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay, and could that be used towards the costs of that insurance? I mean, couldn't that essentially refund us for the cost of that insurance if we don't end up using that money
Yes.
in that fund too?
Absolutely.
I guess my other question is, let's say a student's laptop breaks at school, and they say it's another student's fault, not their fault, and then the parent refuses to pay because they say, my child isn't the one who broke it. Johnny took her laptop and Johnny broke it, and then it becomes he said, she said. I mean, how are we going to handle situations like that?
So the ADP covers accidental damage. So if somebody breaks another person's laptop on purpose, and we have had some of that occur where it's actually vandalism, that's not covered by the ADP, and then that is charged right back to the parent anyway. So it's not the warranty, it's just accidental damage. So if it's anything intentional, it is not covered.
But if they say the accident is a result of a different student, are we still putting that on that parent? How does that?
That would go to the principal or the assistant principals. They would do an investigation of that, determine who's at fault, and then charge accordingly as to who's at fault. If the parents refuse to pay, it becomes part of their obligations. Just like if they lost a textbook and refuse to pay for the textbook, it becomes part of their obligations, and they have to satisfy those obligations in order to partake in the end of their senior year, as far as graduation ceremony and so forth. There are things that they don't get to do if they don't pay their obligations. So it will be handled just like that.
Diane, I have a question. Could you explain that again? So we pay the insurance, all of the insurance, and then we get reimbursed by the parent for the insurance to come back to us. And then the repairs. So explain that whole process again, because we got lost on that one.
So the ADP covers accidental damage protection. So the district purchases ADP across the board. Correct, for every device.
Okay.
So when something happens, so the current process that we do, something happens, they bring their computer over to the library, we fill out a form, the student signs it, and they say, yes, that's what happened. It goes out to our vendor. Since we have the insurance paid for, we are not responsible as a district then to pay anything further. So anything that is deemed as accidental is paid for because we've already purchased the insurance.
So using this hybrid model, then what happens?
So then if the parent would opt out of paying for the insurance, so then we're actually going to charge the parent because they haven't paid for the insurance. So the parent would actually be responsible for the damage, the accidental damage to the laptop.
Okay, but we already paid insurance on that. But we're
Correct.
charging them the full price for the accidental.
Correct,
Okay.
because they haven't
Okay, that's
opted
where I
into
lost you.
it.
Okay, that's where I lost you.
Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask, did you get that confirmed that that's proper to do? So I'm just wondering if, parents,
The parents are making a choice to basically pay for the insurance or not. That fee that is in place now is for the ADP. And if they choose not to pay that fee for the ADP, then they do not reap the rewards of that insurance. So we will pass along the cost of the repairs because the district has purchased the ADP. So we're trying to, at that point, if they don't pay for the ADP, we're gonna recoup the cost if they damage the equipment. Because they chose not to pay for the ADP. So they have a choice to make. And if they don't pay for the insurance, then they'll pay for the cost of repairing the equipment.
Well, then why would the district pay for the insurance on all of them? Why not just make it?
When we order the laptops, right after the June board meeting, we order the laptops, we order them all with ADP. We have to make that choice at that time. And then through the current model, then the ADP is just reimbursed over the 4-year period. But if we go to an optional model, we still have to put the ADP on because at June, we have no idea who would buy it and who wouldn't buy it. So that's why.
Sean, I have a couple of questions maybe you can help with. One, we talked about these costs that would be passed on to the family. Do we have a mechanism to invoice families or to pass that on?
We do now.
Okay.
You know,
Okay, I wasn't sure if we did.
It comes out of the high school.
Okay.
If there's a student who has done damage to something, vandalism, anything like that, it's determined the cost. A lot of times, Jeff has to provide
Okay.
costs to repair something that's vandalized.
Okay.
Goes to the principals, and then the principals take care of it.
All right. So follow up to that is, if we have a family that refuses to pay the insurance, where's the teeth to make them pay the $274 for the broken screen?
Becomes a part of their obligations, and when they become a senior and get to the end of their senior year, they lose privileges if their obligations are not paid. They don't walk right, graduate obligations.
Okay.
Do you withhold their diploma, right, if they haven't paid, until they paid?
Well, we have to have that established.
Right. Second-
Okay, I'm sorry.
And the last point is, if we go down that road to make the insurance optional, I would like to see these costs published up front
That's
for the
right.
parents.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, so give them a laundry list of, here's the insurance, here's what it does for you. And if you don't get the insurance, here's the costs if damage occurs to this, or this.
That was my question.
Yeah, that was something that I was going to suggest. You tell people, if you don't,
Yep.
here's.
Right, so give them the full
Sticker
view.
shock.
Yeah.
Sticker shock.
Sticker
Yeah.
Yeah, Diane will have to rework the entire info-snap agreement that each parent signs off on at the beginning of each year when they pay their laptop fee. So all that will be worked into there. And Mrs. Yard had asked me a question about, can the parents see that after they've signed it? Currently, no, but Diane is going to make a change to that process where that they're going to be able to see that. She's going to put it somewhere where they can go back and actually see it again. Because in the past, once it's gone, it's gone.
Right, not even just printed. I said if where everything's digital, you want to be able to just go back, because it's in Power School that you do it, so you want to be able to go back into Power School and say, oh yeah, here's that agreement that we signed, and go back and refer to it, and it should have the costs in there, so then you know at any point, and then it will reduce problems later on. People, you can say, well, your agreement's in Power School, you can see it, so.
So what we'll be doing is actually adding like a link from the technology page is being relaunched, like we redid. The technology page is horrible, so we're relaunching the technology page, horrible. There's just not a lot of information on it. And then we'll also be putting it on the high school one-to-one page as well. So we will be putting those forms out there. Now what you're asking or referring to is, will you be able to see your actual signed agreement? And that we will have to work on. So if you want it, you just want the boilerplate of what it looks like? So,
yeah, and I think, wherever you say, because InfoSnap is in Power School, so I think it should stay in Power School because that's where people know that they signed it, rather than having to search somewhere else on the web for it.
So you can only get into that area in Power School through InfoSnap at the very beginning of the year. So once you actually go through and do your paperwork, you can't get back in there. So now on the portal, on the actual Power School portal, we can look at putting a custom screen that says, you know, you have signed on such and such a date.
Yeah, that, yeah,
You know,
I think
something
that
like
would be
that.
sufficient, yeah.
We have a screen in Power School called Hand In Tracker, and it keeps track of everything you've handed in. So we could make that onto the public, onto the
yeah.
Power School portal. So we
Yeah,
can
I
look
think-
at that.
I think that would be helpful. So so the administration is suggesting that we go to the optional fee and not just that we pay the whole thing? And then if we go to the optional fee, would it be $35 a year because that's the actual cost?
We're suggesting that you go to the optional fee, and we're suggesting that we pass a motion that says that the annual fee will correlate to the cost of the ADP, so that we can change that based on the cost of the ADP, instead of having a set fee by the board that we have to come back and, keep coming back to you and asking you to vote to change. We would like to be able to have the fee correlate to what the ADP actually costs.
Okay, but sometimes hasn't it dropped over the years?
Yes.
So wouldn't we still make, I mean, are you gonna charge seniors more than freshmen? Because their ADP was higher when it was started 3 years ago?
That is something that we have to consider looking at. If the fee drops dramatically from class to class, then I think we have to be able to, charge accordingly. So what we've seen, it's kind of leveled out the last couple of years, right around that $140 mark. But I think now we need to adjust it down, and then we need to be able to look at it and adjust it if we need to.
Yeah, so would the fee right now, I mean, would we be agreeing to that it would be higher for seniors? Was their ADP more?
So when the seniors actually purchased their laptops, the ADP was $185. It's down to $140 now, so it is coming down.
Although seniors have already paid
Yes, they have.
$150, so.
But if we change them to 35 this year, it's going to put them at a total right about at that number, so.
Right, yeah, so I think, I mean, I would say it would be best to keep everybody the same, because I think, I mean, that's my suggestion.
That would be our goal.
Yeah.
That would be our goal.
To
is
keep everybody
To bring
the
them all
same.
to 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, so couldn't it be the average then of the 4 every year? So you're changing the fee each year, but you're changing it for all the grades,
Sure.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question. So, and I've asked Mrs. Miller, asked Mr. Deibler today, students in AP classes, I mean, when you read this, section 801 says if students have required work and the school is requiring them to do something like with a textbook or a computer, right, they should have what they need, and AP students have required work over the summer, things that need to be turned in during the summer or on the first day of school, and they don't have the equipment to do the work, and I think it's a very big problem, and I mean, I've heard other parents say it, I think there needs to be a way, if you have required summer work, that there should be a way to get the computer sooner.
So we have been trying to figure out a way to do this, like we have heard this. It's just over the summer, we have so much to do with the equipment that right now we don't have all the laptops even like to the point where they can be handed out again. So we take them back. We have to make sure that they don't have to go out for ADP. We clean each one of them. Mr. Schlatter can attest to that because David Schlatter, not only is he a star videographer, but he is one of our star interns too. So he can attest to what we go through to get them to the point to turn them back to the student. So at this point, we're not even through re-imaging them all yet. So,
But why couldn't you do the AP, the kids who signed up for AP classes first? Why do you have to finish all of the computers at once?
so that takes the extra management of making sure that we have the AP kids separate. It's just, we've got 1,800, actually we collected 2,400 laptops this year, so we're just trying to get through them in a methodical, a methodical way that we can get them all done and all ready for the, for distribution. So distribution this year is like August 14th. So we're not ready to distribute yet. So I can't even tell you that we can distribute them at this point because we don't have everything re-imaged. So we probably figure another 2 weeks before the whole re-imaging process is done.
Well, then I think we need to have a discussion about what's required over the summer, because there's a huge amount of work required over the summer, a huge amount that needs to be done online.
So maybe we need to hire part-time people to make sure that we can assist the technology department
Well,
to
I'm
make
sorry,
that happen.
why can't we just have two different drop-offs? Like the AP kids, if they have to drop off theirs to a certain spot, and those get put in a specific spot so that you guys know, okay, all the AP laptops got turned in over here. Why can't we just organize how they turn them in at the end of the year and say, if you're taking AP courses over the summer, you gotta have it in this right spot, and if you don't turn it in to the AP spot, then you're out of luck.
Why don't we do the second curriculum?
It's a problem right now, and I've been asking for months about this. And here we are talking about the fee, and it says right here, if the school's requiring something, then the students should have the resources, and they don't.
So we have been talking about this for a while, and as I said, we're trying to, so it's not only giving it back then, but it's the paperwork and it was the fee, so we just weren't sure how to handle everything here and to pull it together for the AP students. We collect them right now, we collect them all during homeroom, we don't collect them during like AP classes, certain AP classes, so that we can provide them to the entire population again, so that when they come in, they're given out in homeroom. So we have to adjust the way we collect, so we can adjust the way we give out as well. And at the end of the school year, we don't even really have a list of who's been accepted into the AP classes yet, because scheduling's not 100%. So there's a whole bunch of different factors that are going into this that we're trying to manage and trying to control.
Were you provided a list of the students taking AP courses, where wouldn't that, if you had a list of AP students, their computers would go to the front, you start doing the clean and refurbish whatever needs to be done on theirs first,
So if we could get that list at the end of the school year, so scheduling's not even complete at the end of the school year, so I don't know if we can get a comprehensive list at that point.
When students turned in their computer, at least students who were in the high school, when they turned in their computer, they received their course list when they turned in their computer. 8th graders got it in the mail.
So in other words, there is, by the end of the year, they do know who's taking AP classes. And I would say, you know, even if that's going to change, you have a good idea of who's taking AP classes. And like Christine said, it is a lot of work and everything. And I could just say, as a parent of, you know, now my 3rd child going through this with AP courses, it is a lot of work. And I appreciate the one-to-one, but you know, with technology also comes problems sometimes, and it's very frustrating when that technology, you know, isn't working out at home and we don't have a fix for it. But to not have it for AP when so much is required beforehand, either make it not required or, you know, it needs to be submitted some other way, which I don't see how that can happen either. But the point is that you're asking these students to take on this work, and that's fine. That's an expectation with advanced placement courses. But then to say, we're going to, you know, make it so you can't turn in your work because you don't have your laptop until August 14th. Well, now you're asking them, I don't know what they do with their homework in the interim. Do they write it on paper and now they're typing it into the computer to see what? I don't know. So I think that it's something that should have been worked on before now, honestly.
I was just saying, why don't we develop a plan? We can hash this out all night, it's not gonna help. Why don't you help develop a plan for this? I was gonna say, these are really two different issues we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Your point is very well taken. That we wouldn't obviously need to have a vote for. It's something that just needs to be done. But if we're gonna change to what we currently do with the charging fee, that's where we need to know if you're willing to have a motion.
Let's go back to what we're discussing.
Right, but I still think, but I mean, it's part of the discussion though, that we're requiring students to do something. So, and I mean, my hope is that you would still be able to get it to those kids before August 14th.
You're going to look at this and get a plan, correct?
Yeah, okay.
I just have two quick questions. One, low-income students right now do not pay a fee. So would they would still be covered, I would assume, because they don't get the fee at all. So if theirs gets accidentally damaged, that gets covered, their parents don't get charged a fee, correct? Okay. My second question, let's say my parents paid the fee for my computer, for me to have protection, and I accidentally damage Mr. Dahlbert's computer. Is Mr. Dahlbert's parents going to have to pay the fee even though I'm the one who damaged it? And then since my parents paid the fee, would my parents have to pay for it because their parents didn't pay for it? Do you know what I mean? Or because their parents didn't opt for the insurance? I'm just wondering, at least, I mean, it gets complicated, so if we're going to pass that it gets done this way, then, you know, we need to understand how that would work.
So again, I think when there's any kind of discrepancy between, you know, he said, she said, and who broke it and who didn't, I think that's when the vice principals get involved and they sort it out and they do their investigation, and then at that point, again, you're not really talking about an accident then. So it's not a true accident. There's some kind of intent possibly.
No, I'm saying, what if I bump into his desk and I accidentally knock his computer down? I did it, but it was an accident, and my parents paid for it.
Can you turn your mic on,
his parents
please?
didn't. Do you know what I mean?
So I think at that point, I mean, we will have to have the principals involved, the vice principals involved, do the investigation and kind of sort it out.
I guess I would just like to know, if I vote to approve this, I would like to know how the parents would, what the parents' requirements would be in situations like that.
Can I just interject for a second? It seems to me that if the parents paid an insurance fee for accidental damage to a computer, whether the computer your child damages by accident is his own or someone else's, you're covered. I mean, that just makes sense to me, and I would hope that the district would see it that way as well. If the parents were responsible enough to pay insurance, if it's required, because let's be honest, we know the school district isn't going to be facing any cost for that. So to me, it would be pretty offensive if we asked parents to pay for accidental damage to a computer that quote-unquote doesn't have the coverage, when we all know that it does have the coverage.
And I agree with that, which is why I want that laid out that way.
If the event, if it's common sense, you're right. If the event is truly an accident, it's going to be submitted to the ADP company as an accident. Even if we do have to bring an assistant principal in to determine if it's an accident, if they determine it's an accident, we'll submit it as an accident. Regardless if, there's a big difference between, like you said, bumping into somebody's desk and accidentally damaging the computer, then picking it up and throwing it on the ground, which we've seen that too, and that's not an accident. So yes, to answer your question, if it is an accident, we'll report it as an accident, and that's how. I mean, that's how it gets covered. We take an incident, something that happened. Usually the AP, I know from talking to Mr. Schoonover, he meets with the student, determines how the damage happened. He has a form he fills out, and that form then is signed by the student, and the student is saying what happened, and then that form is actually submitted with the computer to the ADP company. And if it's documented that the damage is due to an accident, then it's covered. But what you can't do is pick up a computer and throw it on the floor, and then all of a sudden say, well, that was an accident. No, we got 10 other people witness, that said that they wanted,
Yeah, but my question wasn't between accident or
Well,
vandalism.
we can hypothetical this all night long
If it's
about things like that, so
I just want to know if a kid's laptop is damaged accidentally by another student, is it that parent's responsibility or not? Whose responsibility is that?
No, what I'm saying is, if it is damaged due to an accident, regardless of who damaged it, it'll be submitted as an accident and covered by the ADP as an accident. It would not be charged to the parent.
Even if the parent didn't pay the fee.
The parent?
Okay, never mind. Okay,
Can you turn your mic on, please?
So what is the plan for moving this forward? Is this supposed to be moved forward to the next meeting, or tonight, or what was the expectation?
If the board is willing to move it forward tonight, I'd be happy to put a motion forward to put it in place.
I'm good.
Can I-
Oh.
Right, so we have three options on the table right now. One is we leave it alone, B is we modify it, and C is we eliminate the fee and we suck it up, right? So I would be in favor of modifying the current fee structure to make it optional, with the provision that there is full disclosure to the parents of their potential exposure of costs.
And it would state, and the motion would state that the fee would be whatever the
Yes.
current ADP is? Or an
Or
average?
an average, we have to,
Well, yeah, and we
Yes.
have to be careful how it's
Yes.
worded, so.
Don't you think we should get the language right and put that in the next meeting so that Rob can look over the language before?
We could vote, Mr. Daubert, on the 24th, because if the
Yeah.
students don't have to start paying till August 1st, would we still not be okay?
We do have to get any kind of changes that we're making off to InfoSnap and give them the time to revamp the logic a little bit here, just because it will be a change for them.
What do you have on the motion now, Mr. Daubert? How is it worded? Because you had drafted
At
one.
the motion as, motion to change the one-to-one device fee to an optional accidental damage protection insurance fee and set the fee to correlate with the cost of the accidental damage protection plan.
Yeah,
That should cover it.
yeah, that, it correlates, so we're not
That's
saying
fine.
average or,
Right.
yeah,
that's fine.
I think that's good. Don't you, Christine? No?
That's fine, and then, but from each year, would the board be informed of what the current costs are and what the fee is gonna be?
Yes, so every time I do my technology presentation for the new year, those costs are listed, so just make sure that you see what that new ADP cost is.
And it should be in the quote when we renew the leases every year.
Right, and so we're saying that this year, it would be, the optional fee would be $35 for all students, is that what?
Correct. ADP for this year's model is $140, so that's divided, and that's, total for 4 years. So if you divvy that out over your 4 years, it's $35.
I'm good.
Christine's okay, Peter, Steve, Joan? Okay. I think you have enough to make it a motion.
Okay, then we'll move that forward to the board meeting tonight. The next finance committee meeting is scheduled for August 9th. Is there any public comment? Go ahead. Please state your name and municipality.
Sue Furlong, West Markfield Township. On item number 2, review contracts for approval, the Sweet Stevens Katz Williams Legal Services Consultation Agreement. What was that for?
Special education.
Okay. I thought I saw in the agenda that there was a legal item for the contract negotiations.
Yes, that's correct.
Did that get dropped?
No.
That's on the board meeting that's next.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then I got mixed up.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Then we are adjourned.